stronger, faster, and
doing that. When are we going to get the roads if we are pumping up such money into the power sector inefficiencies? We buy gas from the gas operators. We infuse the price of the gas in the tariff, but the gas price doesn't come out, and the government have to find money from the budget to go and pay for the gas, because of the inefficiencies that are happening. So the power sector and the energy sector in general has become a very crucial sector for Ghana that we need to resolve as quickly as possible. In 2 years, we had wasted 14 billion Ghana cedis, addressing the power sector problems.
It's early days to say whether one is okay or one is not okay. The situation is that things have changed. So if these things are going to be put in place, and also if business people, and what does it bring to business, and if people are in a position to pay and they're paying, what are the benefits and so on and so forth. For business, it's difficult. I mean, nobody wants tariffs to go up. But if it's a situation, and if somebody is subsidizing somewhere, and for that matter, we are not in a position to be doing that going forward, I think that we should come to the book and know that, okay, if these are the right tariffs to pay, and for this reason, and for this reason, I think we should go forward with it.
We need to go into the depth of it and see that those increases would be used in such an efficient way that 5 years down the line, we are not back here again. For me, that's where the challenge is. If we are asking for certain increases, look, we didn't talk about the automatic adjustment. They said it's now called quarterly review. If that quarterly review had been put in place continuously, it would stave some of the huge amounts that they're asking for in percentages. But what did PRC say? PRC said the board wasn't in place, certain things came in, and so for probably a year that hasn't been done. It comes to hurt the ordinary man.
The 1 cubic meter that we are requesting from the people of Ghana is 19 cedis 52 pesos. Okay, that is for operations alone. But if government decides to take our other burdens, including our capital investment, then it will go to 25 cedis or 28 cedis. Okay, so 1 cubic meter, even if you take the maximum, the upper limit, it means that 1 cubic meter of water will cost 28 cedis. Ghanaians are prepared to buy at 2,000 cedis packaged water, and they are comfortable. But when it's from the Ghana Water Company Limited at 28 cedis, then they have a challenge. If we want strong institutions and we want the GWCL to serve Ghanaians the way we all expect, then we should be able to prepare. We should be prepared to pay more. Now let's look at the depreciation of the cedi. The last tariff we had as a company was in 2018, and that was 6.9 cedis a cubic meter. As at the time, we are told the PLC that the cost of production was 15.6 cedis. They gave us 6.9 cedis. So since 2018, for every cubic meter of water that we produce, we lose 8 cedis. For how long can the Ghana Water Company Limited live or work like this?
Is ECG broke?
We are. This is a fact. This is a known fact. We are struggling. Look, we are struggling to match the demand for using service connection. People are paid. We can check. And sometimes the month they have not been serviced. We have some taxes available, maybe postpaid, and we don't have prepaid. So it's a prepaid bill. And this is like you made mention of low-hanging fruit, for example, where the person is ready to pay. So what is the problem? And we can't even, sleepless nights. People call you as when we want service. You're supposed to know somebody. Something that somebody is paying for. But the meters are not there because they are expensive. It's subsidized. We weren't allowed to charge the commercial for the meters we are buying. So we have to get the money to buy, and then still we don't make it. But we can't charge the commercial rates for the meters that we bring in. So these are challenges that we think that when we meet us halfway, we are still at the have been submitted to the PRC with the proposal, and we look at starting for the next 5 years. And start picking it now.
Right. Joining me right here in the studio, I have engineer Dr. Clifford Abdallah Brahima. He's Managing Director, Ghana Water Company Limited. Joining us via Zoom, Dr. Steve Manteau, policy analyst and co-chair of the Ghana Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative. Bright Simmons is Honorary Vice President, Imani Africa, and Dr. Eric Obute is Acting Director, Research and Corporate Affairs, Public Utilities Regulatory Commission. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you very much for making time to join us on Newsfile.
Good morning.
Right. Okay. So let me begin with Dr. Steve Manteau. You've heard the voices we have played from Ali Jarana, PRO of the PURC on the tariffs. You heard Ben Boache on the power sector inefficiency. Dr. Humphrey Ayim Dake of the AGI, and then Kwame Jantwa on the issues regarding Jubilee Gas, and also speaking on the tariffs. You heard Stanley Mante of the Ghana Water Company and William Boateng also of the Electricity Company of Ghana. People don't know how to process what is about to happen. It does appear it's bound to happen. That the ECG is asking for 148% increase in tariffs. And the Ghana Water Company is asking for 334% increase in tariffs. How should we process these, Dr. Steve Manteau? Please unmute. Please unmute.
Right, thank you. Thank you for letting me. Yes, thank you. Good morning to your listeners and viewers. And let me begin by saying that the demands that the utility companies are making are generally reflective of the challenges within the larger macroeconomic sphere, such as inflation that is spiraling out of control, a city that cannot stand its ground against our major trading currencies, interest rates that are falling behind inflation, etc. And for these reasons, government bears part of the responsibility for the unprecedented tariff increases that the companies are making. It is important, however, to note that a component of the inflationary trend which has fed into this demand is as a result, in fact, it's imported, is as a result of the supply chain disruptions arising out of COVID-19 effects and the general price increases globally. And so a certain component of the cost that has fed into the demands that the companies are making are imported, and for which reason we cannot hold government responsible. But if government were to manage the macro economy very well, and if our city was to hold its ground against the major trading currency, perhaps the extent of the demand wouldn't be as astronomical as it is now.
Once again, COVID, Ukraine, Russia, war is to blame for all of this?
Well, not entirely, because I've already mentioned that even before Russia and before COVID, the economy was not in the best of shape. And so we bear a certain level of responsibility for not managing the macroeconomy very well. And of course, the Russian conflict and the COVID have only come to compound the situation to the extent that we are now having to deal with such huge demands. For me, what is worrying about the demands is also the fact that once approved, they are also going to feed into demand by workers for wage increases. And therefore, we go into a certain vicious cycle of price increases in the country.
Bright Simmons, what will be your, preliminary comments about these impending tariff hikes?
Good morning, Samson. My view is that they are not tenable. We have significant challenges with the proposals that have been made by the regulated utilities, and our analysis suggests that, given the comparative analysis we've conducted with other markets in the world, in short, the regulated utilities are having a laugh. They cannot justify the demands that they are making. And we believe that PRC has every basis to begin active regulation. This tendency where it just sits there and requests for quality KPI data, as opposed to probe the integrated resource plans of the utilities to establish whether or not the return on equity analysis that they are making is sound, is no longer viable. And if you want me to delve into it, to a greater depth, I'm happy to do so.
Right. Let's dive into the deep right away.
So we have to just look at the numbers, right? I mean, ECG has a distribution service charge as a percentage of the end user tariff. So what you pay at the end is an aggregated number that comes from charging you for the generation of the power. So Akosombo is owned by VRA. They have a certain cost to producing the power. Then Gridco is owned by the government. They transmit the power to ECG. ECG is more or less owned by the government, and they send the power to your house as last mile distributors. And each of them take a piece of the amount of money that you pay. So if you look at ECG alone, they are getting like 2-point-something cents per kilowatt hour that they give to you. 2-point-something cents is really good. I mean, you look at utilities of the same size as ECG in many parts of the world, in Asia, in the US, and the rest. And they are making do with 1 cent, 1.5 cents, etc. So if you're getting 2 cents per kilowatt hour, you have to be quite inefficient to claim that, that amount is much too low. So we have a problem. Of course, there are factors exogenous to their own operations, which we agree with them. And in that regard, I agree with Dr. Mantiel that we can't blame the regulated utilities alone, because there are factors external to their operations that matter. But we still have to look at the numbers. Take the generators, for instance. Take VRA. VRA, not too long ago, published numbers that suggest that if fuel pass-through costs are being borne by the government to the tune of close to $1 billion now. Very soon, the government's share of the pass-through costs, that is the fuel costs and other cost for spares and the rest of it, is going to hit like $1 billion. Now, if you have those circumstances where that is being converted into equity, because that's how they are calculating it now, the government puts in money to discharge some of these obligations. The government assumes, therefore, that it increases equity in the holdings. And we have to ask ourselves, in those circumstances, whether the return on assets calculations that they are trying to suggest, the return on equity suggestions, is that the government, so like for instance, VRA says it should be 11-point-something% return on equity. Essentially, I have a certain set of assets. I need a return to justify those assets. But you don't own those assets. Those assets are owned by the state. And the state doesn't have that same degree of expectation in terms of return on equity. So if those are the circumstances, on what basis do you demand 11% return on equity when you're a state-owned utility and the state is increasing its equity contribution due to the fact that they are paying for your fuel? You're not paying for your fuel, right? You're not paying for your spares. So it's already highly subsidized by the taxpayer. So when they look at when they merely just look at the tariff and they say we are not paying enough, they forget the fact that the government is buying them fuel, the government is buying their spares, and we are paying as taxpayers through that. So in effect, we are paying more than the published tariff. We are paying the subsidy that allowed that power to flow. So we don't accept their calculations. That's as simple as that. When it comes to other dynamics in that space where we've looked, for instance, at how they compute, for instance, the how do we put it? Jesus Christ. They have a way in which, beyond the return on assets, they look at risk. as a way of computing the return. So your hurdle rate in that industry. To our mind, a regulated utility that has a monopoly has almost no risk because we don't have retail choice. If you go to the United States, where in about 28 states or so, you have retail choice, people can shift. When they've been confronted with the least competition, they've gone to the regulator and demanded that the regulator more or less hobble and hobble their competitors. An example being the embedded generators. So they say, well, some of these industrial players nowadays are going to private sector operators and asking them to give us capability to generate power, and they don't have our full exposure, so we think you should regulate them even more tightly. That is because they are recognizing that industrial consumers or industrial customers now have retail choice. They can decide not to buy from ECG, in effect, therefore not buy from VRA and some of the other IPPs who are also regulated. But that fact, the fact that they don't like that, tells us a lot. It means that they are not competitive. They argue about energy levies and other things like that, which are, somewhat viable. We have to look into that into greater detail. But I don't think when you look at the cost difference between the embedded generators, the operators that are essentially not part of the structure as it currently exists, when you look at their costs and you take out the contribution of the levies and the rest, I don't believe, and the analysis show that you can account for the difference in cost between they and the regulated utilities purely on account of the levies. So it means that those embedded generators that they want PRC to hobble are fundamentally more competitive than they are. So we need to dive really deep, not just looking at just quality statistics, QS, quality of service statistics, but into their integrated resource plans. To give you an example, there are power plants within VRA's portfolio where capacity utilization is as low as 18%. And in that same category, like in solar, they are building more. How do you build a power plant where you utilize only 18% of the power plant's output? 18%. So it's like you build a factory, and that factory is designed to make 100, packs of jollof rice. You build a restaurant, and you only sell 18 packs of jollof rice. And despite that, you want to build another restaurant that also makes jollof rice. All of these things makes no sense, and nobody's really delving deep into the way in which they are organized as utilities. Last point, when ECG says that its distribution service charge is low because it inherited it from PDS, and then since it inherited it from PDS, the adjustment has not been made. It goes into this really convoluted analysis about the fact that, because we have split the assets from the management, the fact that PDS was willing to work with this low rate was because of that distinction. It makes no sense. I don't understand that point. If PDS was the concessionaire and they were willing to work with that distribution service charge, then there has to be a really compelling reason why ECG argues that that charge was fundamentally flawed. So these are some of the issues that we have.
So referring us to the difficulties within the power sector, and we know what is happening because of Ukraine-Russian war and all of that in respect of gas and the rest of them, and the oil industry as well, petrol. Now, as we know, transport fares are already, getting out of control. So you agree that there ought to be some increase, except that what is being demanded is what you term as untenable?
There has to be some increase. It has to be based on comparative analysis with other jurisdictions where there is efficiency, right? It's possible that there have to be some increase given that we have a baseline. They're becoming used to operating with a certain set of numbers. And now that the external environment has changed, inflation is rising, the currency is depreciating, they do buy certain things in dollars, the currency is depreciating, they charge in cedis. Some of those will be justified, given they have a baseline. But I'm arguing that, and definitely on behalf of the organizations that I represent, which is the CSO community, our argument is that we have to do a much deeper dive into their actual operational effectiveness as utilities, as regulated utilities.
Right.
The cost plus model relies on us delving into their costs before we can think of the plus, right? The return on equity and all of those matters. So we're arguing that the degree to which we have to examine the way they operate is so critical that until we've done that, we have to be very careful just looking at the baseline, assuming that that baseline is fixed. But yes, once we accept the baseline, then we have to recognize that so long as they buy some of their variables, the price of their variables in USD, and yet still they charge in cedis. If the currency is depreciating, they definitely justify to ask for an increase from that baseline.
Right.
But that baseline is not sacrosanct.
Thank you. We'll have Dr. Brahima justify what they are seeking. We'll have Dr. Obute tell us the processes that will be gone through and what is likely if he's able to see into the end of all of this. But Dr. Steve Mantea, I got really scared when I got the comparison or the example that was made with bottled water, that we are comfortable, we are okay buying bottled water for so much, and we are unwilling to pay, if you like, competitive price for water from Ghana Water Company. That scares me. Hello, Doc. Please unmute your mic.
That's right. It shouldn't scare you. It's a fact of the matter. But you see, because it's incremental, in small quantities at a time, we don't buy large or bulk quantities of the water that we consume. So we don't recognize that eventually we are paying much more for bottled water. But you see, and that is the reason we need periodic automatic adjustments. If they were working, then of course we wouldn't come to the situation where Ghana Water would be asking for 148% increase at a go. And so it's also a failure. I see it as a regulatory failure in not ensuring that over time, now we call quarterly adjustments. If it's going to work efficiently, then we are not going to have a situation where we'll be demanding huge tariff increases at a time. But let me quickly also chip in on something that what do you call my good friend Bryce Simmons said about the inefficiencies. While discussing that, we need to pay attention to the fact that certain amount of inefficiency is allowed in utility regulation. In Ghana, I think for water, we allow about 45%. And for electricity, I think we are around 27, 28%. Now, we need to interrogate that and see how that compares with international best practices and standards. In my view, what the PRC calls the regulatory benchmarks, which is the level of inefficiency we are willing and able to tolerate, needs to be reviewed. I think to accept a situation where about half of the water you produce goes to waste is not tenable, and we need to go back to the drawing board and relook at the regulatory benchmarks.
And like Bright says, we need to question a number of things. As we understand, for example, for ECG, the 148% that they are requesting, if that is approved, your electricity bill will not go up by 148%. So that if you pay 300 cedis a month as your water bill, ECG's component is just about 100 Ghana cedis, which is the distribution service charge. And it is this 100 cedis or the distribution service charge that they want increased by 148%. How do they justify that, having listened to Bright Simmons? Hello, Dr. Steve Mantea.
Yeah, come again, please. I didn't hear the question.
I'm saying that when the ECG says, give me 148%, they're basically asking for distribution service charge. This is like, say, a certain percentage of your bill that you pay for electricity. Now, having listened to Bright Simmons and having heard the questions of waste and issues of incompetence and bad management, how is this justified?
Samson, I refuse to accept the notion that the Ghanaian manager is inherently incompetent. Because I recall from years back, I think 2005, 2006, we experimented management contract in the water sector. We brought in Akwa Rand.
Yep.
And we charged them to reduce non-revenue water by 5%. 5 years into the program, they were not able to achieve that. And we refused to renew the contract. Management reverted to Ghanaians. And the phenomenon that heralded the coming on board of Akwa Rand, which was the Kufuor gallons, vanished. The Ghanaian team was able to reduce water by more than 5% over time. And so I believe that the Ghanaian manager is very competent and very efficient. Sometimes what we are prepared to do for foreign multinationals, we as Ghanaians are not prepared to do for our own. And that compromises their ability to deliver on the mandate that we've given them. So you take even football, for instance, consider how much we pay foreign coaches and local coaches. And again, if you look at Akwa Rand, we gave them a lot of concessions that we're not prepared to give our own ECG, to the extent that they said they were better managers, but we were ready to ring fence all the legacy debt and leave them with a clean table. And what was the result? Of course, there were some in the collection.
Dr. Mantiao's line freezes there, but let me come to the studio. We have Dr. Brahima here to try to understand how they are able to justify what they seek as far as the ECG request is concerned. He is the managing director of the Ghana Water Company Limited. Now, when I said I got scared when I heard the comparison or the example being given with bottled water, that we are ready to buy that and we don't seem to want to buy at similar price from you. Why I said I got scared was that not too many of us can afford bottled water, and not in the quantities that we need water to use. So if the suggestion is that we are going to use that to justify bringing the price to such a level, then the poor is going to be in trouble. Even the rich may suffer. How do you justify what you are requesting?
I don't think that comparison means that the water tariff should go to that level. Because the bottled water, the sachet water, they also have to go through some processes to get to the level. We are saying that you're just comparing and to see what the differences are. We are a public utility owned by the people of Ghana, 100%. And so there are certain expenditure that if they were not on Ghana Water Company's books, can't bring the tariff low. I keep telling people that our current tariff, for me, is one of the best within the sub-region, if you really want to look at them. But what the other, like Bryce Simon is saying, he has equally failed to tell people what those utilities that are performing the way they perform get from citizens, also from maybe the government. Our tariffs historically, not today, historically have been very, very low. And so current requests is an accumulation of things that should have been done over the years. Let me just give you one example. 2013, January, I can remember, I went to Savlugu to look at their system. because they take bulk water from Ghana Water Company and redistribute to the people of Savlugu. It was a MEDA project, and so they wanted to examine or pilot such a system. So there was a private operator that was running it. They were buying a cubic meter of water from Ghana Water Company at 86 pesos, and then distributing to the citizens of Savlugu at 2 cedis. And so at that point, I wanted to actually look at what GWCL's records are. If these people are selling it at this level and making good money, 86 pesos, what is GWCL making out of this? Then a story can be told. And if it means trying to separate the bulk production and distribution, then probably a recommendation is made academically at that time. Savlugu is very close to Tamale. So there was a problem. People live in Savlugu and work in Tamale. People live in Tamale and work in Savlugu. So they started comparing their water bills. And so there were agitations. What I'm trying to tell you is that historically the tariffs were low. But for us as a utility, you don't need to hide anything from anybody. The PURC has a responsibility. They regulate trade strong people. So they are watching over a tripod system. You have the utility, you have government, and you have the consumer. To make sure that everybody is satisfied. Nobody takes advantage of the other. Government is so strong in this equation. And so they are also there so now they are doing consultation. We are saying that we have these cost build-ups. And if these cost build-ups are supposed to be catered for, this will be our tariff. Again, the 300% the media is throwing out. GWCL has 3 scenarios, but we just decided to go to the market with the biggest one. Probably that will create the kind of environment that we want. One, we are saying that if the government policy of 2015 that says that all loans contracted, all grants taken by government to invest in the water systems are supposed to be all lent to Ghana Water Company to pay. And so you have to escrow some money into an escrow account that is controlled by Ministry of Finance and Ghana Water Company. Then they must speak to PURC and get PURC to put a tariff line so that specific amount will be escrowed, and that's what we will use to pay Ministry of Finance. But if there is nothing there, and we are supposed to take money from our operational system, operational cash to do that, it's going to be a difficulty. So immediately, that online loans are taken off, about 6.1 billion Ghana cedis. It comes down from the 300 to about 250. Quickly. We are also saying that the assets belong to the state. But if you begin to unlend this to us, it's like, yes, you are a company, the asset belongs to you, but the asset belongs to government. Ghana Water Company thought their asset was 2.2 billion cedis. And at 2016 thereabout. When we did re-evaluation of the assets of Ghana Water Company, it came to 17.2 billion. So from 2.2, that we were thinking that's our asset. So if you are looking for any return on your asset, you are using 2.2 to calculate. Today is 17.2 billion. As of 2018, 2019. What it means is that your capital investment costs has gone high. And if it is not catered for, you will continue to run down the systems. We are telling PURC there is a way of debating and working on how to resolve this one if we sit on the table. We are saying that if we take only Ghana Water Company and DISAL, and to be frank with you, all the 3 scenarios have desalination also in there because It's a water purchase agreement signed. Parliament actually approved it. So if we just take GWCL operation alone and then desalination, we come to about 150%. And so these are the three scenarios. And we think that, look, let's be fair to the story. Let's give the three scenarios, then we can work on it. But remember, VRA is asking for increase in tariff. Grigo is asking for increase in tariff. ECG is asking for increase in tariff. The structure of Ghana Water Company is that we do production, we do transmission, and we do distribution. So the three different units that you are seeing smaller, if you had aggregated them like we used to have VRA doing all, the tariff of Ghana Water Company would not have been seen as that high relative to the other ones. Also remember that the tariff ECG is asking for is a pass-through cost for Ghana Water Company.
Meaning what?
We pay, our systems rely on ECG, and we are treated as commercial entity, not a company that is running water for you at a lower tariff. They charge us as a commercial entity. So these are things that we can discuss and bring the values actually down. And so we are saying that
when you say bring the values down, you are saying that the 334% demand will come down to about what?
It depends. It can even come to zero.
Can come to zero?
Yes. That's what I said at the beginning, that the current tariff, if some cost elements or cost items are taken away,
okay,
the tariff are enough. All our debts, those things that were incurred at the time that tariffs were so low, if all those things are taken off, but if we are supposed to do all this, one, most of our systems are over 50 years old. The pumps, the pipes, and also if you go to Choco and those places, they are complaining about water because their systems have encrusted. They are steel pipes, and because of the position, all the time, the sizes of the pipe have become smaller. So you can't push enough volume of water through. You have to replace them, and the places have become built areas. If you want to replace it, it's cost. How do you do that? So these are things that when we begin to discuss, then we realize that some of these costs, if they are taken off, one, if our debts overhangs those times, or they call them legacy debts, are taken away, if the on-lend loans are no longer on lend to Ghana Water Company, if we say that the capital investments are going to be taken care of by the state, all these things will go down.
And what you're talking about,
the citizens.
What you're talking about, is that realistic?
Oh, it's realistic when we sit down. It's realistic. I have, in one of our sittings, told PRC, after all this, we must sit down and look at another innovative way of financing the water supply, because countries are doing it. And we can equally do that, because government has one bowl where they pick money and distribute to other agencies. There are agencies that will benefit when Ghana Water Company is very efficient.
Okay.
And then let me just say the last thing. You see, our citizens are those that pollute our water. So if you citizens take the responsibility not to pollute the water, we are not going to increase the usage of chemical like we are doing currently in Wager. From 200 bags of aluminum sulfate a day, we are now using 300. And that's an increase in cost. And this is citizens who are polluting the environment. So when we do that, so that's why I'm saying that PRC is regulating the three of us. Each of us has a responsibility. Once we take our responsibility up seriously, some of these costs can be controlled.
All right. Dr. Eric Obute, Acting Director, Research and Corporate Affairs, Public Utilities Regulatory Commission. Take us through briefly what the processes ongoing, if they have actually actively started, are like, and what should we look forward to?
Hello.
Hi, we can hear you.
Hello, Samson.
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, Samson, sorry. Okay, sorry, my connection is not that stable, but if I heard you right, you want me to talk about the processes
that's
we
right.
go through before we come up with the tariff.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay. Section 22 of the Act of PORC states that the utility company could come up with a tariff proposal if they need an adjustment. But to make sure that we sanitize the whole process, the PORC actually gives regulatory time periods. So 2 years, 5 years, for instance, now it's a 5-year regulatory period. And for all the utility companies to submit their proposals. So it doesn't become like they submit proposals at different times. Now, when they submit those proposals, the Commission would interrogate those proposals formally by engaging the utility companies. And thereafter, we would have stakeholder engagements, which is what we are currently doing. After the stakeholder engagements, we now do the public hearing, which is we open it up to the entire country for everybody to make input. And this we can have as write-ups. People can make inputs through the internet, the website that we have, and they can also come to the public forum and make their input and question the utilities on the basis for which they are asking for those utility tariff increases or adjustments. Thereafter, the Commission would sit and make analysis and furthermore come out with a tariff adjustment, which will be announced by the Commission. So that's basically the process that we go through to arrive at the tariff.
So you have about 3 activities left to come to a conclusion.
Yes, for now, we are about finishing the stakeholder consultations. Coming week, we'll be meeting with the Parliamentary Select Committee on Mines and Energy, and we'll be meeting with the TUC as well. And we'll start with the public hearings, meeting the general public, and thereafter, we'll come to a conclusion by doing the analysis before the Commission comes to that tariff announcement point.
What's the timeline for this?
The Commission is looking at the 1st of July to come up with an adjusted tariff. So between now and let's say June 14th or middle of June, we'll be having these stakeholder engagements and the public hearings. Thereafter, we'll do all the number crunching, and then we'll come up with the tariff by the 1st of July.
What's the feedback like in the stakeholder meetings so far with MPs and the rest of them?
Well, some of them are of the view that we should give them the tariff because it's like we should buy the bullet. And this thing has been recurring for all these years. So they don't want to come back the next couple of years again and then hear the same stories. Others are also of the view that we should not give them the tariff. So it is up to the Commissioner to look at the merits and demerits of the cases that are put before it and then come up with an announcement or a decision point should be reached.
Imagine they were to be giving the tariff as demanded, as you suggest some stakeholders.
Hello, Samson?
Yes, can you hear me, Doc?
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So I was asking that as some stakeholders have suggested to you that go ahead and grant approval for the tariffs they request. Imagine you granted that. What are the permutations? What does it look like? What will the cost of electricity and water be?
Well, at this point in time, you said I should imagine, but the Commission is not actually going to just imagine. The Commission will actually take all these factors into consideration, the benchmarks that have been set up before they come up with the tariff. So I'm not going to stick out my neck and say the tariffs will go up now or they will not go up. But ECG, for instance, is saying that they should move the tariff from 16 pesos to 39 pesos, which is giving us the 148% that they are asking for. The Ghana Water Company has 7 cedis per kilowatt, 7 cedis per meter cubed at this particular point in time, and they are asking for 28 cedis, 20 pesos per cubic meter, which takes us to 300%. But we have to look at all these numbers before we can come up with a decision.
So, as far as you are concerned, you are only acting as an unbiased, impartial, umpire, so to speak. Is that your role? Exactly.
Because we need to, just as Engineer Brimer said, we'll have to consult with government, the legislature, and then the consumers at large. So we need to make sure that everybody is kind of satisfied. We can't be biased towards one side.
What kind of input from the public will get you to insist that, for example, what they are requesting, they can only get a quarter of what they are asking?
The service quality. We look at the service quality index. So if the consumers are crying for the well, I don't have water running through my taps, or I get water only once a week, or my electricity is highly unstable. Yeah, we have to take all those indices into consideration before we arrive at a decision.
Thank you very much. Hold on there for me. Let me go to Bright Simmons. And Bright, you heard Dr. Brahima. What's your reaction to him in the justification he gives for their proposed tariff hikes of 334%?
So, Samson, let me, with your permission, let me start showing some figures on the screen. I hope that's permitted.
That's all right.
So I've listened very carefully to Mr. Brahima, and I mean, I do appreciate the fact that he's at the front line. He's got to keep the water flowing through the taps, and we have to be differential in that sense. But the truth of the matter is we don't get enough opportunity in this country to truly scrutinize public duty bearers. So here are a range of tariffs that, apply across the country, across the continent. And while it is true that in Ghana, we haven't seen as significant a range of increases as has been the case elsewhere, like in Rwanda, the truth, though, is when you look at the absolute number, what we actually charge, we are the most expensive amongst all the major economies that I have looked at. And actually, that number that you see there, the $1.06, is not entirely accurate when I look at the actual numbers in Ghana from a more comprehensive perspective. We are hitting something in the region of $1.14 per cubic meter. So compared to, the cheapest operator, like the cheapest water producer, like the Togolese regulated water utility, we're talking of a situation where we are more than 4 times more expensive from a cubic meter point of view than Togo. What is it about Togo that is way more efficient, whether in terms of the structural dynamics of policy making, business environment, etc.? So that's a fundamental challenge that I have when he says that, when I've looked at the region, our prices are competitive. If they are not competitive, if their prices were competitive, he would have put that in the proposal that he made to the PURC. One of the things that you observe is that in other places where you have regulated utilities, where utilities often believe that their case is very strong, they go to the extent of going to court to force rate increases because they have the evidence. The reason why our utilities will not dare do that is because that will prompt serious scrutiny. The likes of Imani and other CSOs will file amicus briefs to go and challenge them there. Because when you look deeply into the numbers, a lot of what Mr. Brahima says doesn't entirely hold water. No pun intended. I'm looking at one of the most deregulated markets in the world, the United States, where therefore making profit is fairly acceptable, for public utilities. Here in Ghana, we don't have that degree of deregulation. We're not expecting our utilities to be making massive profits. And yes, even in the United States, when you look at approved return on equity,
some of the biggest utilities there, nobody is asking for 11-point-something% that VRA is asking for. We're just talking about bottled water. The ridiculousness of that argument that has been made by some people, obviously, Mr. Bremer's arguments are much more nuanced, and I'm not in any way suggesting that he's making those arguments. But some have made the arguments as if there was a parity. And there isn't a parity. Oxygen is free. 1 liter of oxygen, if you decide to buy it in concentrated form, costs you almost $100 per liter. Are we going to make a comparison between free oxygen and bottled oxygen? Why does it sound more ridiculous when I compare free oxygen versus bottled oxygen to free water, cheap tap water versus processed water? It's a competitive market in the bottled water space. Competition typically brings down prices. We don't have retail choice in Ghana. So the prices that we have are not comparative to prices, are comparable to prices that would pertain in a market where there's real competition. Now let me get to the meat of the matter. When you listen very well carefully to Dr. Obute, the problems that we face become apparent because, as I have mentioned periodically, and obviously on this show I've already mentioned, there is an overemphasis on quality of service in computing the increases that are often demanded. And that is not sufficient. There is, from our point of view, a rough approach to trying to establish how, at the very least, to compute return on equity before you go into some of the other cost dynamics. And when you look carefully, the factors that prevail in deregulated markets, many of them don't prevail here. We are not paying dividends. In these utilities, they are not paying dividends. They are often not listed on the stock markets, and therefore, in that regard, they don't bear the pressures of earning growth. In a number of instances, they are borrowing at way below the market rate. To give you an example, what Engineer Bremer did not tell you and your listeners was that the amount of the interest rate that he pays on money that is on-lent to him by the government is below the interest rates that the government as a sovereign itself pays. It's almost 300 basis points below what the government today will get on the market if it went out to borrow as a sovereign borrower. He's getting like 6% on dollar loans. Who in Ghana, which entity in Ghana will get 6% on dollar loans? Can you imagine what industrial corporations in the private sector would do if they can get $6% dollar rates? So we have to be extremely careful in terms of bringing serious scrutiny to these matters. The way in which we stay at the surface and then we allow people to get away with it, it's not acceptable. And I think it is time that all of us in the media, in the civil society movement, becomes much more stringent in the way we apply scrutiny to public duty bearers. And these regulated utilities, particularly those of them that are owned by the government, are publicly owned and regulated utilities. They have to behave like public duty bearers. So I completely disagree with a lot of the analysis that has been made because they are not borne out by the facts. And I think that the PRC should stop relying on quality of service data alone, move into actually looking at costs. Okay. As a lot of the other utility commissions around the world.
Bremer wants to make a quick reaction. Please listen to him.
Unfortunately, Bryce Simmons is speaking out of what the reality is.
Which specific issue?
The sub-region comparison he's making. What are their inputs?
What do you mean?
The online loans that he's talking about, and even saying that we are taking it at a lower rate, which is not true. There is no item on the tariff.
What is not true? You're not getting your money at 6%.
Pardon me. What I'm saying is that there is nothing on the tariff. You can get PURC to respond to it now. Whether the tariff currently we are charging.
So one by one.
He should let me speak.
One by one. You said you are not getting the loans at 6%.
Let me just make the point.
What
I'm saying is that it doesn't matter whether it's even on 0%. I'm just making the point. He should let me speak.
No, you said that is incorrect.
It is incorrect because there is no item even on the tariff build up that is meant for on-lent. So where's the money coming from? There is nothing like profit on our tariff. PURC can respond to it now. That there is no item on our cost build up currently that has on-lent And we are saying that for us to do this on land, add it to the tariff calculation.
No,
the only business GWCL does...
Bright, hold on.
Correct or not?
The only business GWCL does is to sell water to the people. And we have categories. Investments are not determined by profitability, by the returns. It's a social good. Government of Ghana is enjoined to sell water whether the people can pay or not. That is the case. Okay. And so when I am bringing a project that's not going to give me returns, where do you think I would put it? So when you lend such an amount of money to the utility, then allow the utility to put it on the tariff so that you can
I thought you just said there's nothing on it to be unlent.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So we are proposing, and that's why you are seeing the 300. And that's what I told you at the beginning, that when we take off the on-land loans, which currently there is no space...
lent money at 6% or not? I'm not clear. Is he saying that government has not...
I am telling you that even grants are on-land. So what are you talking about that one? Grants are on-land. 2015, grants were on-land to GWCL.
No, but at what rate?
Please.
Was it at 6% or not?
Grant is 0%.
6% in some instances.
I am telling you, grant is 0%. And the on-land to Ghana, GWCL, at a rate they collected the other ones from.
No.
Currently,
if you are borrowing at 6%,
please. You are speaking out of context. Please. You are speaking out of context. I'm sure your specialty is in energy. So please, let's talk to you. I am telling you that there is no line item on the current tariff that's for on-land. And so when you give me an escrow account to pay that money in, what it means is that I have to take it from other areas to come. We are changing pumps that are over 50 years old. We are changing a pipeline that is over 55 years old. Steel pipes are 30 years old. And so today, when we are doing all this, we are saying that there is so much pressure in the past, but we are here today. We cannot continue to complain. We must take the responsibility to do what is right. And that is why it's good that PURC is doing the consultation, that everybody has a stake in this business. Let's do our bid and make sure that the tariffs are good. I can tell him again, has he checked the liquidity of those sub-region water utilities? I can tell him today, it's Cape Town and GWCL that are liquid, that can have cash to pay for certain things. So let's put all this in context. We can't speak because we're just on numbers.
But to what end? If you are talking about GWC
and then again,
you having a good whatever liquidity,
yes,
and then the prices, as he showed us, comparatively, we can get better. What's the end?
Because the cost built up on the tariff, some of them are absorbed by the states. If you go to Cote d'Ivoire, there is no galamsey. And for that matter, the cost of production is as low as anything you can talk about. I am supposed to do a process loss of 5%. If I take 100 liters of water from the river, I should bring 95 liters to you. Today, some of them you can only get 50. And the cost of treatment has gone higher, and you are sending less. And so if you are giving a tariff over 95 liters, and you are not doing 50 liters, how are you going to make the money? And so citizens are also responsible. The people who go into the rivers to mine are those who go home and say there's no water. And that is why this consultation is very, very important.
The government is supposed to ensure that they don't go there to mine in the first place. Let me get to Dr. And I'll come back to you, Bright, quickly before we take a break. But Dr. Eriko Obute, what would you say, because Brima was inviting you to confirm the issue about you know, the percentage at which...
just on-land loans on our tariff.
Yes.
Whether it is captured on the tariff.
What can you tell us?
It's not captured on the tariff.
So if it is zero, even if it's 0%.
I also want to respond to what Bright put up, saying that PRC only focuses on the quality of service to come up with a tariff. That is just an aspect of the tariff. The PRC looks at the RAB, that's the regulated asset base, looks at the depreciation, exchange rates, the inflation, and other parameters which are taken on board before they come up with a tariff. So if you just say we are looking at only the quality of service, we are focusing on only the quality of service to come up.
But a while ago, yourself, you singled out the quality of service.
No, because you asked me a question about what consumers would say that will make the PURC maybe tilt the tariff in a particular way. That's why I came up with the quality of service, because the consumers will basically not talk about the regulated asset base.
Clarify a number of important points, Samson.
They will not talk about that. So that's why I had to answer that with that.
Bright, I'll come to you shortly. Right. Okay. Bright, can we hear you in some 2 minutes, and then we hear Dr. Steve Manteau and take a break.
Nobody talked about what goes into the tariff in the analysis I made.
Saying it is quality. You said PURC focuses on the quality of service alone to come up with the tariff, which is not right.
I'm going
to correct that aspect.
I've not even come to that point. I've not come to that point. I'll come to that point.
All right.
Because that's what you said. I'm just reacting.
I'm not reacting to you yet. I'll react to you.
Okay.
First
now let's hear.
The argument is that the Ghana Water Company gets money from the government at a rate of 6%, and in some instances less than 6% on dollar loans. That is money that they use in some of the operations. Are they explicitly arguing that they don't get money at that rate or not? Because all the things that you're talking about, that they don't go into a tariff and they are completely meaningless.
Government
the argument is, if you are an industrial operator and you can borrow at 6% or less in this country, you've got very good. There are a lot of industrial operators that if they borrow at that rate,
understand it.
We're doing so much better. So this argument about whether or not they add on lend into the
we
type
don't
of the rest,
take any money from the states.
That is relevant.
GWCL takes zero money from the states.
Sorry?
It says they take zero money from the state.
You are saying Ghana Water
takes zero money from the state. Yes. Apart from the investment,
it is your own submission.
It is the investment. Hello, it is the investment.
Let me actually put the exact.
It is the investment that is the responsibility of the state to distribute the water everywhere, irrespective of whether there are good returns or not. That they all lend to us, and that's what I'm saying. That those investments.
Are you saying that
we don't have a tariff on it?
Listen to this question.
On lends money to you. If the government on lends money to you, they on lend money to you. And I'm saying that the rate that the government on lends money to you is so low compared to what others will make that you have to be extremely grateful that you're able to get money from the government at that rate.
And I'm saying that even if it is zero,
even if it is zero,
you cannot even get it.
Simple.
Even if it is 0%,
that the government does not lend money to you or not, because I'm going to
prove if it is zero, even if it is zero, it is not on the tariff.
You yourself has made. I'm going to display on this screen commitments that you yourself have made, admitting that that's how much you get from the government, the rate at which you borrow from the government. The on-lend agreements that you have with the government.
But he's also guessing it. Where are the money coming from to pay?
That rate.
Where is the money coming from to pay? Where is the money coming from to service even the zero interest? It is your interest.
You borrow at 6% or less.
And do what with it? And do what with the loan? What are you doing with the loan?
Okay, fine. I will display that on the screen in a second to establish the fact that you do borrow at that rate.
And to establish the fact that on our tariff, there is it to take the money and pay.
Okay, right. Bright,
establish it. Let me go to the last point about quality of service data. The last point about quality of service data is that I did not say that when you are computing the tariff, you only look at quality of service data. I'm saying that in the active regulation, the documentation that is regularly submitted to you, they are primarily related to quality of service and KPIs that are primarily quality of service linked. Of course, when you are doing a tariff computation, you will look at exchange rate and the rest. We all read those reports.
I'll be completely ridiculous if I suggested that in actually building up the tariff, you don't consider those costs. I'm saying that in your active regulation, what you actually collect as in terms of reports from the regulated utilities is primarily quality of service focused. You are not collecting enough data regarding costs of the operations, cost of their investments, and you're not actively managing those matters. And I can show you documents in relation to the kind of reports that you receive and the kind of analysis that is performed.
No, but the reports are different, right? The reports are different. Maybe the report we have is a quarterly report which has only the quality of service.
No, I'm saying that is what you predominantly
focus on. So it depends on the report.
That's what I said.
We ask of different reports from the utilities. We don't.
True.
The utilities
but
do not only submit only one report.
Active regulation that you engage in, the back and forth that we've reviewed, 90% of those back and forth are related to KPIs that are primarily quality focused. They are not focused to. They are not related to investment cost. I've never seen a query from you to any of the regulators in the last year looking at any cost-related matter that is investment-driven. And if you are able to show us on the screen, I'll happily retract a single regulatory query related to investment, even if it's a capping model that you are questioning the inputs or whatever. So when we say these things, don't create the impression that we are somehow deceiving the public, because we look at these documents just as much as you do.
All right.
So when we make the arguments, it's careful as public duty bearers, you allow us to have a truly reasoned debate that is based on rigorous analysis of the figures.
Right.
And the data that exists.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Steve Manteau, very briefly to conclude on this subject so we can take a break and return to look at the issue of Japa. The economy is bad, like you admitted from the beginning. People are suffering. People can't afford transport, food. Everything is getting out of hand, really. So what is realistic? Because it is agreed that the production chain will require some, will go up as a result of what is happening globally everywhere. So what would be realistic for people in Ghana who, are faced with all of these challenges?
Well, after reviewing the data, I think at the end of the day, what would be realistic is tariffs that will keep the utilities in business. Tariffs that will sustain their operations, because the converse will be worse and very difficult to think about. A situation where their operations cease, and therefore we will have to resort to other sources of water and to resort to generators and all that. Those will be much more expensive. So even as we discuss these issues, I think it's in the interest of every consumer that at the end of the day, we pay tariffs that will keep the utility companies in operation.
Okay. Dr. Obute, people are panicking ahead of this, what you expect to bring forward, because already they're struggling to afford. What will you tell them?
Yeah, well, everybody should just stay calm. People also take a very good look at all the proposals out before the commission, and then we'll take a decision by the 1st of July. The commissioners will announce that decision by the 1st of July. But maybe to just put a little bit of speech to Bright, if you just go onto our website, you'll see the guidelines of the commission. In that guideline, you will see everything that we do to come up with the tariff. So I just want us to stay away from that aspect of saying that the commission would only focus or delves a lot more on the quality of service. We do much more than that. Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Brahma.
Yes.
You give an impression that there are other ways by which you could actually come to zero demand.
Yes.
How can you successfully push a bit more of that so that citizens will be cushioned?
No, it has to be innovative. I am saying that, look, if you currently go to our health institutions. A greater part of the diseases they carry there are waterborne related. Ministry of Health has a budget. Ministry of Sanitation has a budget. Ghana Water Company is a utility company.
Ministry of Environment.
Exactly. What will we do in increasing access and quality to the citizens such that the cost of Ministry of Health for the hospitals will come down? This is something that can easily be calculated with proper data. And then you say that, okay, at a point, let's shift some of the resources from health to water, so that the tariff can go down. 2, who are those polluting the water? It's not the mines. Whether they are illegal, legal or not, they are with the mining sector. What can the mining industry do as far as water supply is concerned? Because I take 100 cubic meters of water, I am supposed to take 95 cubic meters to the citizens and sell at a unit rate and get this money. But because of the activities, I'm getting 50, but the cost has even increased. So can you also look at a margin to support government to give that money?
That's where you bring in the individual responsibility also.
Exactly, because the utility company, can you imagine Ghana Water Company shuts down for a week or 2 for the whole country? Do you know the cost? You can't imagine the cost. And so this is a utility company that all of us must protect. Manteo indicated, we brought AVRL here. I keep saying it, and I'm challenging anybody. With the help of World Bank, government of Ghana together gave them $100 million. 2017, we took over. Nothing given. The PURC, the non-revenue water was at 54% in 2017. It's currently 45%.
I see.
9 percentage points in 5 years.
So,
but they got that, and they couldn't reduce it. And they were supposed to even be reducing it by 1%. And
so you are making a case that you deserve to be supported
and applauded. And people, when they are looking at the numbers, they shouldn't be looking at that the bottle is half empty.
Because can we look on the screen now as well?
I'm coming.
The hole is deep. We are feeling it. It has not come out for you people to see that the gravel has gone in.
All right.
And so when you are beginning to judge it as if nothing is happening, PURC will tell you that GWCL is now more proactive. We are doing a lot of things on our own. And I can tell you, our industrial meters, we purchase them with our own money. Bulk meters, we purchase them with our own money. We are carrying out innovations within the system to get the system running. But it takes some time to rectify
the entities that owe you money.
Yes, we're after them. We're going after them.
Just like ECG, I've been surprised to read and to learn about those who owe ECG in the millions. And you can't understand what sort of culture is this. So let's have Bryce Simon. You have the last word.
I'm just showing on the screen for your viewers to read themselves.
Yes. On lending of grants.
That the Ghana Water Company borrows from the Ministry of Finance, which is essentially the government of Ghana, at 5.76% at the beginning of 2021, and they've got rates at 6% in December 2021.
That's
this is coming from their own submissions to the PRC. Okay. So absolutely cannot be the case that they don't borrow at that rate.
On lending of grants and loans,
it is a
the last point is that there are 5 million or more households in Ghana. 36% of them have access to pipe-borne water. So at the very least, there are about 1.5 million people enjoying pipe-borne water in Ghana. If you take community water and sanitation agency out, you should have at least something in the region of about 1 million customers.
Okay.
Ghana Water has only 680,000 customers.
That's so true.
He's not even mobilizing enough to ensure that he onboards enough customers.
So I don't accept Mr. Bremer's argument that there's no more he can do on his side. And as I said in the very beginning,
thank you, Bryce. Thank you, Bryce. Now, Dr. Bremer. Yes, Bryce, hold on. No, wait.
Yes.
Dr. Bremer.
Yes.
So the excerpt that he just pulled
that's what I want to respond to.
Clearly confirms that he's coming from a position of reading from facts from yourself.
I am saying that this is a justification to PURC for that increase in tariff because it is not contained in the tariff.
So how is he supposed to interpret this?
That's what I'm telling him.
He interpreted this and you say he's wrong. But this is what
No, I am saying that government of Ghana online load. I mentioned this here. And if that is taken out, the tariff will come down. And if that is supposed to be there, then they have to put this on the tariff. And that's what is bringing it to 300. And that's why he must understand that it is a proposal. And if you are writing a proposal, why don't you indicate justifications?
At the beginning of 2021 and now gradually increasing to whatever figure.
So
at the rate of 6.00 in December 2021. And they talk about the rate of LIBOR interest, 4% interest.
That's what they give to us, but we are unable to service it. But it is in our books.
Okay.
Because there is no line item for it. Okay. We are saying that if they want us to do that, then all this must be captured on the tariff.
All right. Thank you very much, and thank you Bryce Simmons for also bringing this up to put this matter to rest. Yes.
Yeah, evidence to prove the PRC point as well.
Okay,
because I think we let people get away without scrutiny.
Thank you. We take a break here, and when we return, we will go to look at the issue of a JAPA, and Bryce Simmons will stay with us. Dr. Steve Manteyao is still going to be with us. We'll be joined by Benjamin Boakye, Executive Director, Africa Center for Energy Policy, ACEP. We'll be right back.